My mother married 3 weeks after my father died. She became obsessed with her new husband's baby and erased my dad. But when we confronted her, she said we didn't deserve to be family and now claims we abandoned her. I'm 20 years old. I work part-time at an electronics store, and honestly, I need to tell this story because I feel like if I don't get it out of my system, I'm going to explode. What happened with my mom over the last few years basically destroyed whatever relationship we had, and now she's going around telling the whole family that my sister Mia and I abandoned her, when the reality is completely different. I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was like 7 years old and my parents got divorced. I don't remember all the details of the divorce, honestly, because I was really young. But I do remember that suddenly Dad wasn't living with us anymore, and we had to go visit him on weekends. Mia was 9 at the time, and she remembers more things than I do. She told me later that there were lots of fights, and that Mom was super angry all the time. But anyway, over time things calmed down, or at least it seemed that way. Dad moved to an apartment not too far away, like 20 minutes by car, and we stayed in the house with Mom. The custody was shared, you know, the typical thing of 1 week with each parent, and honestly it wasn't that bad. Dad always made sure we did our homework and took us out for pizza on Fridays, and with Mom it was different, but also fine. I mean, it was our normal life. Things started to change when I was like 16. Mom met this guy Jonathan at, I don't know where. I think at work or something. Jonathan was super quiet and kind of weird, like one of those guys who doesn't know how to behave in social situations. You know what I mean? But the most important thing is that Jonathan had a baby, Carter, who at the time would have been like 8 months old or something. The baby's mom apparently wasn't in the picture. I never really knew what happened there because nobody explained anything to us, but basically Jonathan was a single dad with a baby. And this is where everything gets weird. Mom became obsessed with Carter from day one. I'm not exaggerating, literally obsessed. Suddenly her whole life revolved around this baby that wasn't even hers. She started posting like 1,000 pictures of Carter on Facebook, taking him everywhere, buying him clothes and toys, and acting like he was her son. At first, Mia and I thought she was just excited about the new relationship. You know? Like, it's fine that she likes her boyfriend's son. But it got more and more intense. Mom started calling Carter my baby and my youngest son and stuff like that, and we were like, wait, what? We literally had to listen to her talk about Carter all the time. Carter this, Carter that, look what Carter did today. Then Mom and Jonathan announced they were getting married. I was 17 at the time, almost 18. They scheduled the wedding for August, and everything seemed to be going well, I guess. Dad wasn't very happy about the situation, but he didn't say much either. He just asked us how we felt about it and things like that. And then, like 2 months before the wedding, Dad had a car accident. It was on the highway, a multi-car crash, and he died instantly. I don't even know how to describe that, honestly. One day he was alive, and the next day he wasn't. Just that simple, and that horrible. Mia and I were devastated. Like, completely shattered. Mia was 19, and in college, she had to take a semester off because she couldn't even get out of bed. I just stopped functioning for a while. I stopped going to school, stopped seeing my friends, basically locked myself in my room and didn't want to talk to anyone. The paternal grandparents, my dad's parents, were equally destroyed, obviously. They organized the funeral and all that, and it was horrible. There's no other word to describe it. And Mom? Mom was at the funeral, cried a little, acted appropriately, I guess. But the thing is that, like a week later, she sat Mia and me down and basically told us that the wedding was still on, that she wasn't going to postpone it, that Dad would have wanted her to be happy, and that life goes on, and blah blah blah. Mia and I were in shock. I mean, literally our father had died a week ago and she was talking about her damn wedding. We asked her if she could at least postpone it a few months, like, so we could process everything, but she got super defensive and said no. That they had already paid for everything, and that she wasn't going to change her plans for something she couldn't control. She got married 3 weeks after Dad died. 3 weeks. Not even a month. Mia didn't want to go to the wedding. She simply refused and stayed in her apartment at college. I went because I still lived with Mom and felt pressured, but it was the worst experience of my life. Being there, pretending to be happy, while I was still processing my father's death, was surreal. And the worst part is that Mom acted like everything was perfect, like nothing had happened. She smiled in all the photos with Carter in her arms, danced her first dance with Jonathan, cut the cake, the whole show. Jonathan and Carter officially moved into our house, and Mom started acting like this was her real new family and we were just, I don't know, extras in her life. Carter had his own room decorated like he was a little prince, with everything new and expensive, while Mia's room that had been empty since she left for college was converted into a playroom for Carter. Mom started insisting that we call Carter our brother, that we treat him as part of the family, that we include him in everything. And here comes one of the worst parts. The paternal grandparents, my dad's parents, obviously wanted to keep seeing Mia and me. We were all they had left of their son, you know? So they'd invite us over for Sunday dinner and stuff like that. But Mom started putting conditions. She told us that if we were going to visit the grandparents, Carter had to go too. That we were a family now and that Carter needed to meet everyone, Mia told her she was crazy, that the grandparents had just lost their son and the last thing they needed was to see the new husband's baby. But Mom insisted. She said that if we didn't take Carter, we couldn't go. The grandparents were super polite when Mom presented this to them. They told her they understood she had a new family, but that they needed time to process their loss and that they preferred to spend time just with Mia and me for now. She called the grandparents selfish and said they were being irrational. In the end, Mia and I started visiting the grandparents without telling Mom, like we'd sneak away when she thought we were somewhere else. Then came Dad's birthday. He would have turned 48 that year. The grandparents organized a small gathering at their house, nothing big, just us, some aunts and uncles and cousins, to remember him and celebrate his life. It was really nice, honestly. They brought a cake. We shared stories about him, looked at old photos. It was sad but also comforting, you know? Like being with people who also missed him. When I got home that night, Mom was waiting for me. She asked me where I'd been, and I told her the truth. She went livid. She started yelling at me about how dare I go without her and without Jonathan and Carter, that we were a family now and that we had to do things together. I told her it was my dad's birthday, the dad who had died just a few months ago, and that it had nothing to do with Jonathan or Carter. She said I was being cruel and that Carter was my brother and that I had to accept him. The argument got ugly, like both of us yelling, and in the end, I locked myself in my room. The next day, Mom announced that we were going to have our own celebration of Dad's birthday, but that Jonathan and Carter would be included. I tried to explain to her that it didn't make sense, that Dad didn't even know Jonathan, that she literally married him after Dad died. But she insisted. She bought a cake, invited Jonathan and Carter, and tried to make us all sit down and celebrate. It was awkward and horrible. Jonathan clearly didn't want to be there. Mia looked like she wanted to disappear, and Mom just kept trying to act like everything was normal. She took pictures with Carter and posted on Facebook something like, "Celebrating the special men in my life," with pictures of Jonathan and Carter. She didn't even mention Dad. Mia exploded. She told Mom that she was erasing Dad from our lives, that she was acting like he never existed, and that she was obsessed with creating this perfect new family at our expense. Mom started crying and said that Mia was ungrateful and that she didn't understand how hard it was for her. Jonathan took Carter and left, and Mia just left too. I just stood there not knowing what to do. The following weeks were horrible. Mom started treating me like I was an unwanted guest in my own house. Everything revolved around Carter. The morning routine was for Carter. Dinner was at Carter's time. Weekends were for doing activities with Carter. If I tried to make plans or needed something, Mom would say I was being selfish and that Carter was just a baby and needed more attention. I reminded her that I was also her son, but she just responded that I was already older and could take care of myself. Then I turned 18. Basically, the next day I started making plans to move out. My girlfriend Sarah, who had been with me through this whole disaster and was literally the only reason I didn't go completely crazy, told me I could move in with her at her apartment. She shared the place with a roommate, but there was enough space. Mom didn't take the news well. She told me I was abandoning the family, that I was selfish, that Carter needed me as an older brother. I told her that Carter had a father and that I needed space. Mom cried and tried to make me feel guilty, but I had already made the decision. I moved out 2 weeks later. Sarah and her roommate were super cool about it. They helped me arrange my things and make me feel welcome. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. I didn't have to listen to Mom talk about Carter all day, didn't have to deal with the constant drama. I could just exist. Mia came to visit me and was proud of me for getting out of there. She had stopped going to the house completely since the birthday fight. I thought Mom would eventually get over it, that she'd understand I needed my space and that we could have some kind of adult relationship. But no. About a month after I moved out, Mom showed up at my work. I work at an electronics store. You know, selling laptops and phones and stuff. I was in the middle of helping a customer when I saw her walk in. My heart immediately sank. She waited for me to finish with the customer and then came up to me. She started talking about how I hadn't come to visit, how I hadn't called, how Carter was asking about me. Carter was like 1.5 years old. I don't think he was really asking about me, but whatever. I told her I was at work and that we couldn't have this conversation there. She raised her voice and started saying, I was a bad brother, that I was hurting Carter by ignoring him, that family means being present. My boss eventually had to ask her to leave because she was making a scene. After that, the messages started. Long texts about how I had disappointed her, about how I was destroying the family, about how I was just like Dad, which, what the hell? Dad was dead. Calls, where she yelled or cried or both. Voicemails like 5 minutes long about how Carter needed an older brother and I was being selfish. I tried to explain to her calmly that I needed space, that I was still processing Dad's death, that I wasn't ready to have this forced relationship with Jonathan and Carter, but she wouldn't listen. She just kept insisting that I had to come back, that I had to be part of her new family. Then, like 3 months after I moved out, Mom showed up at Sarah's apartment. I don't know how she got the address. She probably stalked me on social media or something. She rang the doorbell at like 9 p.m. Sarah opened the door and Mom just walked in, asking where I was. I came out of the bedroom, and there she was, standing in the living room, looking completely unhinged. She started with the same speech as always, that I had abandoned the family, that Carter needed me, that I was being a terrible son. But then she said something that really got to me. She said that I didn't deserve to be part of the family if I couldn't accept Carter as my brother. That if I couldn't be a good older brother to Carter, then I had no place in her life. That she had built a new family with Jonathan and Carter, and that if I didn't want to be part of it, to leave completely, and something in me broke. I told her, fine, if that's what you want, I'm gone. I blocked her number right there, in front of her. I told her not to look for me anymore. Not to come to my work, not to come to the apartment. That if this was all or nothing, I chose nothing. Sarah was in shock. The roommate was hiding in her room, and Mom just stood there for a moment, like she couldn't believe what had just happened. Then she started crying and saying she was sorry, that she didn't mean that, but I told her it was too late. I asked her to leave, and eventually she did. I haven't talked to her since then. That was like 6 months ago. I blocked her number, blocked her social media, blocked everything. Mia did the same a while ago. She doesn't talk to Mom either anymore. The two of us are basically out of her life by our own choice, but also because she basically pushed us out. A month ago, my Aunt Deanne, Mom's sister, sent me a message. We hadn't talked much, but she was always kind of neutral in all this drama. She told me that Mom was telling the whole family that Mia and I had abandoned her, that we were horrible children who left their mother just because she remarried, that we were jealous of Carter, and that's why we cut contact. Basically, Mom created this narrative where she's the victim and we're the villains. Aunt Diane told me she knew there was more to the story, that she knew Mom and knew she tends to manipulate things to look good. She asked me for my version, and I told her everything. The divorce, Dad's death, the wedding 3 weeks later, the obsession with Carter, trying to force us to include Carter in everything, erasing Dad from our lives, the confrontations, everything. Aunt Diane just said, yeah, that sounds more like the truth. The other day I met up with Mia at a coffee shop. She's 22 now and finishing college. We talked about the whole thing with Mom, about how it still affects us, about whether we did the right thing. Mia said something that really stuck with me. She said that Mom made her choice when she chose to erase Dad and force this new family on us. That we only responded to what she created. And she's right, honestly. We didn't abandon her. She pushed us out. I don't know if I'll ever talk to Mom again. Part of me thinks that maybe when Carter is older and Mom calms down, we could try to have some kind of relationship. But another part of me thinks we're past the point of no return, that the damage is done and can't be repaired. What I do know is that I don't regret leaving. I needed to get out of that situation for my own mental health. Mia needed the same thing. Sarah has been incredible through all of this. She listens when I need to talk, gives me space when I need it, never pressures me to reconcile with Mom. The paternal grandparents have also been a great support. I see them every couple of weeks, and it's comforting to still have that connection to Dad, even though he's not here anymore. I guess what bothers me the most is that Mom really believes her own version of the story. She really thinks that Mia and I are the bad guys, that we abandoned her for no reason. She can't, or won't see how her actions affected us, how her obsession with creating this perfect family with Jonathan and Carter destroyed the family we already had, and maybe she'll never see it. Maybe I'll always be the son who abandoned her in her narrative, and maybe I have to be okay with that. Last week, Sarah asked me how I really felt about all of this, if I was at peace with my decision. I told her yes, most of the time. I still feel guilty sometimes, like she's my mom after all. But then I remember how I felt living there, how I felt being treated like a second choice after Carter, how I felt watching Dad being erased like he never existed. And I know I made the right decision. Sometimes doing what's right for yourself means disappointing others, and I think I'm finally starting to be okay with that.